flubber?
Oh, fear, sorry. Fear!
Wow.
Join us.
Come join us. Say it.
Hey. Fear!
There. Now you're one of us.
One of us.
Oh, God.
One of us.
That's a
One of us.
Welcome back to the Fear Podcast.
Where we review and exercise films for your viewing pleasure.
And today we have a special guest, Lauren.
Hi, I do things. I watch movies and I do crimes. Thank you.
I can confirm that.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's get our intros out of the way. I am Kirk. I am your host, Kirk Zanetti. You can find me at _captain with a K _Kirk at Instagram. This is my co-host Coleman Hahn. You can find him here at his YouTube channel, Coleman Hahn / Chuck Batman.
Oh, that's why.
You pulled the whole thing out.
I didn't do that. Sorry. There's an extension. There's a wall plug in a wall plug with an extension cord connecting to it that reaches another plug, and that is what I have my computer plugged into.
Did it not charge all night?
Nope, it did not.
Here, we can use my laptop probably. If it's on.
I'm assuming yours didn't also die from not being charged. It doesn't matter. I don't necessarily need it. It's just... So the movies we're talking about today...
Yeah. The movies we're talking about today are...
House, 1977, a Japanese...
A J-horror movie about a haunted house.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. It's complicated.
Raggedy, and then also we talk about Black Christmas, a slasher.
And the best film that we watched.
Yes.
And the best film that we
Lauren,
watched.
this was your pick, wasn't it? So
No.
No, I didn't get any
Well,
say in
it was
this.
mine. Well, I needed a replacement because I decided to save Suspiria for a day when we can review both movies at once.
On my recommendation.
And her recommendation was Black Christmas.
You're welcome.
Nice. Okay, that was a fun one. That'll be fitting because while we intend this to be a pseudo Halloween-y episode, by the time I upload it, it'll probably be closer to Christmas than Halloween, so
Okay.
it all works out. Merry Christmas holiday miss.
Yeah.
And the third movie that we watched, the worst one, Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure, aka Fear.
Fear. This was the most fear-inducing one we watched all of.
Yeah, the other two were horror movies, but this one was definitely scarier than any of them.
So, let's get started with the first one we watched, House, 1977. I'll read the Wikipedia description for this. House, Japanese, Japanese Hepburn.
Don't.
House
Oh God. Okay.
is a 1977 Japanese comedy horror film directed and produced by Nobuhiko Obayashi. The film stars mostly amateur actors with blah, 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 blah. The film is about a schoolgirl traveling with her 6 classmates to her ailing aunt's country home, where they come face to face with supernatural events as the girls are, one by one, devoured by the house. Yeah, and that's basically the plot of the movie.
I like how this sentence here says they approached him to make a film like Jaws. How is this anything like Jaws?
They're getting eaten, I guess.
I
guess. Okay, so that description of this being like Jaws, despite being nothing like Jaws, is more representative of this movie than the description they give you.
Yeah.
Because this is a weird movie.
This is definitely a weird horror movie.
It opens up with 2 characters who call themselves Fantasy and Gorgeous, talking about how they want to fuck their new teacher.
All the schoolgirl characters, all the girls in this movie, the schoolgirls and her classmates have like names that are just English words.
They're just
like,
scripture.
And it's not like those are dubisms.
Mm-mm.
Those are the names they call them in the Japanese.
Yeah. So the lead girl is Gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's her name. And then there's Fantasy, the only one who notices all the spooky stuff for most of the movie.
The
Yeah,
They're
only
like
Fantasy.
stereotype names.
There's the fat one named Mac.
Because of course. What else would she be named?
Right.
Shit.
McDonald's? Who knows?
Yeah. There's
Yeah, it's a McDonald's.
There's the one that does all the housework called Sweet.
There's the one who does kung fu called Kung Fu.
I feel like we're missing a few.
Yeah, but there's the one with glasses.
The professor.
And the one who plays the piano,
Is
Melody. That's all of them, I think.
And it took me until about 2 acts into the movie to like,
Did you talk about?
all their names.
Mac.
Mac, yes, we
Love
mentioned
Mac.
Mac.
So the movie is ostensibly kind of about Gorgeous trying to get away from her troubles at home. Her father recently remarried to a woman who looks exactly like her
I don't
mother.
think they've remarried
It's
yet.
dead.
It's more like they're going to.
They're planning on getting remarried
Yeah.
to a woman who looks exactly like her mother.
Her dead mother.
Her
And
dead.
So she goes to
Yeah.
visit her aunt to get away.
Yeah.
And
She's only met once.
yeah.
At a funeral.
Is
And
that where her aunt? Is that where she met her aunt?
Yeah. It was like her grandmother's funeral, and they're like, hey, yeah.
But again, I feel like we're making this movie sound way too like
Coherent.
normal and coherent for what
There's
it really
the
is.
presentation style is very interesting. Like at the beginning.
You know, Speed Racer. This movie feels like someone watched Speed Racer on drugs.
It's very Japanese. The first before she goes to the family's house, there's like, there's like cheery music playing. The girls are like, yeah, I'm so happy. There's all these weird. God. Okay. There's all these weird transitions that feel like they're like Ang Lee Hulk / Speed Racer type strange scene transitions.
It's like this is a live action anime.
Yeah. There's a few parts early in the movie where they like black out everything else and have a little circle around what you're supposed to be focusing on for a second, which is dumb.
That combined with the incredibly weird and juvenile names they give each other made this kind of feel like a Japanese version of Sesame Street in the beginning.
Yeah, we got some Japanese Sesame Street vibes.
Plus, there's like a weird comedy element to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it's just out of nowhere. Like, they're just having like a terrible time, and all of a sudden they're just kidding around. Like, haha.
Kirk and I have definitely noticed that with all the Japanese movies we watch. That seems to be like a thing where they'll just hard cut between like
action and comedy.
Yeah, or like intensity and calm lighthearted.
Every transition in this movie, because there are no transitions.
There are no transitions.
New scene.
New scene.
Every scene is a jump cut.
Yeah.
Every scene is a jump scare.
So they go to their aunt's house on the train, or Gorgeous's aunt's house. They run into a...
First they go into the woods where they get like put up against like 5 different random backdrops.
Yeah.
None of which are believable, and only half of which you're
really
supposed to
awkward
find
scene
believable.
painting. It's funny, the parents' backyard is the most like... It's like AstroTurf sounds.
It's AstroTurf, and then he's like playing like
It's like the apartment the apartment in 2.5 Men. It's like it's so studio downstage fake.
It's even more studio stage than that.
Than 2.5 Men, yeah, I think so.
It's impressive, actually.
Yeah. It's almost okay. So they go to the aunt's house. Before they get there, they run into a watermelon stand with these perfectly round watermelons.
And this
that are
perfectly
clearly
round
fake.
man.
Yes, there's this man who looks like a real life Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
Selling the watermelons.
He's got like this like bulging body up top and like a really fat head, but his arms are like But his arms and legs are like little sticks.
For reference, they introduce him by having one of the girls take a watermelon and then his head
the
is
fat
perfectly
one,
behind
'cause
it.
she's
Oh,
fat.
yeah, Matt.
She's
Okay.
not fat. She's like
she's just average size.
She's
She's just not emaciated.
She's the average American girl versus the average teenage Japanese emaciated girl.
Yeah. She was one of the girls that stood out the most at the beginning when I couldn't tell who any of them were.
Well, because she had
was the only one allowed
Velma's
to
color
have like
palette
cool like
and
good
Velma's
costumes.
haircut.
Yeah.
And was a little on like the thick and massive air quotes there thick side.
Yeah, she was the only one allowed to like be in different kinds of outfits.
Yeah.
And then she dies. She's the first one.
She's
She's the first to die.
So they arrive at the aunt's house after meeting the weird watermelon guy. They should have gotten immediate red flags by the way that like
he introduces himself to them.
I was gonna say the way the aunt introduces herself by the doors opening where no one is around to open them, and she's sitting there smiling
in
at
a
them.
wheelchair.
Also, there's a cat. There's a cat that's was following around Gorgeous, like showed up at Gorgeous's house with like the note from the aunt that was like, "Hey, come on over, bring your friends, Tee."
So I can eat them. No, the better to eat them with.
Gee, I hope they're virgins.
Doesn't she literally say that Mac would be like good to eat?
Yes.
Like 10 minutes before Mac dies.
Not even 10 minutes, it's like 5.
You're so good, I could eat you up.
I'm so hungry, I could eat a group of schoolgirls.
I think she literally says like, you look so tasty. Haha.
Yes.
Like,
Right.
Tee.
Why?
Ooh, what's this? Holds up a hand.
I like how this movie basically has a Goonies
Wait,
troupe
Sam
of
Raimi?
Japanese schoolgirls.
Yes.
Was he inspired by this movie?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Of
Okay.
course you was. Sam Raimi.
So they stick the watermelon like down a well to like keep it
'Cause
refrigerated.
Its fridges are
Yeah.
broken, and
This clearly haunted house has a broken ass fridge, a broken ass stove, a broken ass just about everything.
And the chandelier tries to kill them as soon as they walk in the house.
Yeah.
And Kung Fu
Kung
takes it.
Fu like stops it.
Kung Fu is like so eventually it gets down to like 5 girls,
And
and they
Fu
basically
is
become the
moving.
Scooby Gang.
Yeah. Kung Fu, all the shots of whenever Kung Fu does something, it's filmed like a stereotypical Japanese action movie. Where there's like and she's like, "Wah!"
And there's
then
like little lines to like
Yeah,
to the action.
yeah.
It's great.
it's that's definitely a comedic element.
She was like consistently the most funny one, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from Mr. Togo.
Oh my God. We'll talk about Mr. Togo.
We forgot to
in a
mention
bit.
Mr. Togo, but don't worry, we'll get to his glorious
Mr.
scenes when they
Togo is
arrive.
their teacher that's supposed to come with them, and there's an excellent scene where he's practically Joker dancing down some stairs, and then he trips over like a bucket and like falls
Gets
into the
hit by a
road and
car.
gets like hit by a
He's
car.
it's not
So he doesn't
Joker
make it.
dancing, that's just pratfalls.
No, he's only like the end of The Exorcist.
He also has massive sideburns, and he is the teacher that all the girls thought was cute.
What's the true we live in a society moment? The Exorcist stare scene or the Joker stare scene? You decide!
I'm so sorry.
Tell us in the comments.
So, where were we?
Oh,
yeah.
we were talking about the watermelon.
Yes, they put the watermelon down the well to refrigerate it, and then Fantasy goes out to get it out, and she pulls it out, and it's
Max head.
Mac's head, and then Mac's head floats a little bit, and then bites her
on the
ass. Epic.
And then she's just floating around like you can tell they put her like in like a they put her in a lift or like in a lift or something, and she's just like there, and they just have her head show.
Yeah.
They green screen the rest of her body.
Yeah, the green screen effects in this like swing wildly from hilariously unbelievable to like actually kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
But also there's like a mid
There's
in between that's
that
like
scene
music.
later where Melody gets eaten by the piano, like that looked cool, except there was one shot of it that looked utterly stupid.
Right.
Yeah. There's like whenever they have like a horror sequence where you're supposed to be scared, there's like one shot where you're like
Or one like music,
where it swings all the way over back into comedy.
If it's not like one shot, it's like one musical cue or something. The music in this movie is kind of obnoxious. It never stops being
I get the
overbearing.
only way I can describe it is a leitmotif, even though I technically don't think it's a leitmotif because it never changes, and I don't know if it really represents anything.
No.
But it's the piano theme that goes
Yes.
throughout the entire movie. This
Yeah.
dun 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 dun.
And at first it's
Dun,
like, okay,
dun,
this is kind
dun.
of a creepy song and they use it sparingly, so it's like, oh, okay, they're trying to be creepy without being full on scary. But
And
then
they keep using
they
it.
just
and keep
the
using
music
it.
in this movie
Keep
is so
using it.
overbearing. During the opening bit before they go to the aunt's house,
It's like
There's-
overwhelmingly cheery.
Yeah, it's like overwhelmingly cheery. Then they go to the aunt's house and it's just constant spooky music.
Like, it starts out like, oh, this is like a kind of fun sort of inversion of this overly saccharine music. Then
And
it
then it
basically
becomes-
becomes a Pixar soundtrack.
Yeah.
And then it swings all the way over into like self-satire.
And then they keep Melody like keeps playing the piano. They really drag out the Melody being killed by the piano.
yeah.
Like first she's playing the piano and
Then
weird
she
things
gets like
are
a little
happening.
cut on
Then
her
she
finger.
gets captured by it. Then her fingers get eaten by it. There's like 5 scenes of her just playing the piano. So you have the already obnoxious soundtrack
And then it gets
louder.
But but forget all that.
And you-
We'll tell you why you're really here. What you're really here for? Hardcore nudity now.
Oh god.
No.
There's like
There's like a couple of bath scenes, and then there's like scenes where like they're getting dismembered.
but they're
and
really
their
not all that
bodies are flying
sexualized.
everywhere.
Yeah, they're not sexualized at all. It's just a
No.
very like non-American
Yeah,
view
yeah.
of nudity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Pretty. That's a good way to describe
Yeah,
it.
'cause
It's
I mean-
like
It's also
nudity
kind of
doesn't
a
have to be
non-Japanese
taboo.
nudity too sometimes though.
I mean, not really. Not from my experience with Japanese movies, but I don't know. I'm not the expert. I don't have the podcast.
I'm just saying as a person who has experienced an unhealthy amount of anime and has lived in the dumpster.
Oh god.
What is anime?
They treat nudity
How
differently
many Japanese
in Japanese
films have you
film
seen?
than they do in Japanese anime.
I just be watching films, you know?
Hey.
Just be watching.
Hey. So, sweet.
Don't worry though, there are no shots where like an underage girl's like ass is like being wiggled around in our face for no reason whatsoever.
Unlike some people, Jaws, Sweden.
I thought you were gonna say unlike Raggedy Ann.
That, yes.
Okay,
Andy.
We're not
We'll get to
underage.
that.
They're just toys.
We'll get to that. But so anyway, after Mac goes missing, / we know she's dead, but they can't find her body anywhere. Sweet gets like hypnotized by this doll, then gets smothered to death by a bunch of pillows and mattresses.
Pillows.
Yeah.
Another girl. Oh wait, no, she's the one who ends up in the clock.
And then eventually ends up in a clock somewhere.
Yeah.
Somehow. As all of this is happening, the aunt becomes younger and younger.
Yeah, at first, after the first death, the aunt can suddenly walk again
After
instead of being stuck in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Then after the next death, she's like dancing around.
And while all of this is happening, Gorgeous is kind of being driven insane by the house.
Yes,
Yeah.
the house. She's like, there's a scene where she's like putting on makeup in the mirror, and then her aunt's in the mirror, and then she's the
Like
aunt,
a demonic vampiric,
Yeah,
vampiric version of herself is in the mirror.
The aunt sort of turns into her halfway through the movie, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then Gorgeous just goes missing and for like most
And then there's a hilarious sequence where she shows up as a ghost again, but the way they do this ghost is it's like her face appears like on it, like filling up an entire wall in the room the other girls are in, and then her lips appear, just her lips talking, and one of the girls goes, "Huge lips!"
Ooh.
It's just talking like freaking annoying orange. I was half expecting her to be like, "Knife!
Knife to
Hey.
meet you.
Hey fantasy! Hey fantasy!
What?
Knife!" Yeah, poor
Fantasy.
Fantasy. She's the last one to
Fantasy gets
die.
it the worst.
She's
Yeah.
the last one to die, and the aunt basically like taunts her, like,
Well, 'cause,
"Ooh,
like,
you'll
she
see this
basically
dead
drives her
person come up
insane.
she's
soon."
gaslit the entire
Yeah, she's
movie.
gaslit it.
Even after the people start, even after everyone knows other people are dying, she's still being gaslit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like, "Oh, you were right." They're just kind of like, "Oh shoot, stuff's happening."
You're still crazy. Fantasy.
Gorgeous like runs off, and the rest of them basically become a Scooby gang,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Fantasy being Shaggy and Scooby,
Combined.
Professor being Velma, Kung Fu being
Daffy.
like Daphne, I guess.
Daffy.
Daphne?
Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck.
And then who was the fourth one with them?
Melody.
Melody.
Melody is like Fred because she's kind of dumb.
Yeah. And then she gets eaten by the piano, and then Kung Fu is what happens to Professor?
Professor.
Gets eaten in the water.
Yeah, Professor gets
Okay.
drowned.
Okay.
For some reason, every single time they're about to die, they get like stripped naked.
Yes, they're clothes, but we don't like see them.
Yeah,
usually.
no.
No.
Right now,
But yeah, their clothes are left behind.
And like, there's this.
I guess the house just doesn't want to eat clothes, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
ugh,
Well, the
fabric,
house doesn't
human
like.
flesh.
We
Yes.
later found.
Fabric? No.
Yeah, we later find out the house eats people. Specifically, it likes to eat unmarried virgins.
Yes.
It's
So
not necessarily the house. It's the aunt like has like her fiance that
Yeah, her
mysteriously went
fiance
missing and like
mysteriously
war.
went missing in the World War II.
yeah.
Gee, I wonder what
His
might have
plane got
happened.
shot down, so clearly he's still alive.
So, okay, this is the part of the movie that I didn't quite get.
Which
and
is funny because like it's an entire sequence of like 10 minutes of exposition.
Yeah, I'm just bad at listening to exposition. And
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So, can you like explain to
Yeah.
me and the audience how the aunt and the cat in the house are all connected?
So like they don't really explain the cat, but
Yeah, the cat's just kind of a representation
cat's
of
like-
the witch.
yeah.
They they have some bit about like early
Cats
in the
that can
movie,
open
early in the
doors
movie,
are
they're like
normal.
only
But
But
this
cats
cat
that can close doors are witches.
are witch cats, and then at
Yeah.
one point the cat when Sweet gets killed by the doll, the cat comes in and the door shuts behind it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, it's a witch
Witch
cat.
ooh. But the whole like exposition thing is that she's like mourning the husband that she never really had, so she's like super jealous of unmarried girls because she's like, I don't know why she eats unmarried girls.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe. Yeah, actually, that's kind of weird because like she seems like she'd be more bitter at married people.
yeah. Well, and then at the end of the movie, the stepmom shows up to meet with the daughter and the girls, and the only one left is Gorgeous.
It's like they
who's
want. It's
clearly
like
a witch.
they knew they. It's like when they were making this movie, they knew they wanted to kill the teenagers, but they couldn't think of why the house would do that.
Yeah, they were definitely. There's definitely a
Like they knew they wanted the aunt to have a grudge against the mom in some way, and they also wanted the teenagers to die, but they couldn't reconcile those two ideas.
I mean,
So they just said,
I feel like the
"Why not
teenagers
both?"
really just die so the aunt can get younger, because she's sort of like.
Yeah. She gets like vitality from it,
Yeah.
and then the aunt just kind of disappears, and it's
And
It-
becomes
It
It
Gorgeous.
seems like they kind of fused together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the aunt was like jealous of Gorgeous's mother, who is now dead, under mysterious circumstances that they never explain, because she got married, and the aunt was just left alone with the cat, and she's like, I'm going to sit here with my cat until my husband comes back.
And while all of this
I
is
got
going on,
Yeah.
we cut back and forth
Yes.
to Mr. Togo's bizarre adventure.
When the movie gets at its most intense, basically starting in the third act,
Yeah.
they start cutting to Mr. Togo, who
Trying to
we
find
thought
his
was
way.
dead, just trying to find his way to where the girls are.
And
So-
he gets in increasingly hilarious hijinks.
Yeah, so we get
Which culminates in the scene where he arrives at the front of the mansion and meets the watermelon guy.
and then the
And the watermelon's guy is like, "Do you like watermelon?
No!
Bananas!"
And then Mr. Togo, and then the watermelon guy turns into a skeleton, and then Mr. Togo turns into a pile of bananas with Mr. Togo's hat.
It's beautiful.
It's cool. I'm convinced. We were joking like the set designer was just like, I'll work for free if you give me a scene where I can make this dude out of bananas. And so they wrote
this movie.
So they wrote this
A lot
whole,
of this movie feels like someone came up to the director and said, "I'll work for free if you let me do blank in the movie."
So there's just this whole, like, they keep cutting back to basically just a different movie starting in the third act of Mr. Togo. Like, now I want the Mr. Togo movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much more interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know.
And like,
Kinda.
apparently, he promised Fantasy that he'd come for them, and like.
Fantasy's the one who's
I guess
the
that's
most
meant to
into Mr.
parallel
Togo.
the way.
Yeah, it's meant to
It's
parallel
meant to
Aunt.
But I'm not sure how, because like they were made under different circumstances.
Yeah, it's very.
And the results and like the way that the promise gets ironically broken is very different.
Bananas! The shit is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. So then.
So yeah, after that, the girls try to like escape the house and also kind of get Gorgeous back.
Yes.
But they kind of assume, but at a certain point, they kind of assume she's a lost cause.
Yeah.
As the rest of them slowly get picked off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
First would I think
Melody.
First is Melody. She gets eaten by the piano.
Then
What starts out as a really gruesome scene, then transitions into a really goofy scene.
Because there's a skeleton dancing in the back. He's like conducting her.
Then we have Kung
and then we get back, and then it goes back to being creepy when we see her fingers doing the piano song.
Yeah,
but just her
severed
fingers.
Then
But
I was actively annoyed
Kung
whenever
Fu
they got back
dies.
to her playing the piano.
No, so the order is Mac, and then
Mac, Sweet,
Gorgeous, kind of.
Gorgeous,
Mac,
kind of.
Gorgeous gets like taken.
Melody.
And then Melody is Sweet at the same time, sort of. And they just cut back and forth to it because Melody has to die like 4 times.
Yeah, Melody's death is so drawn out.
And then they have Kung Fu dies.
Kung Fu dies in the best
way.
The
whole sequence with Kung Fu is great because she is like she actually like the house has trouble killing her.
Yeah.
Like she fights off all of the things that try to kill her, then gets like electrocuted and cut in half by the lamp. Yeah. But then her disembodied legs kick the house and like make him vomit blood.
Yeah. So like even after she dies, she's still fighting back against. That's maybe the most engaging sequence of the movie is like just watching her. Like I wish more of the movie was just her like fighting the house because it like keeps trying. Like it tries to like choke her with a telephone cord, and she like breaks the telephone.
Rips the telephone off of the wall.
Yeah. Like
imagine how much better Black Christmas would have been if Kung Fu was the main girl. Just roundhouse kicking Billy.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so then Kung Fu dies, and then Professor sort of I think tries to do a seance on the house or something.
Yeah, the room starts flooding after Kung Fu starts making the house vomiting blood. Yeah.
All the blood in this movie is like really watered down.
Yeah, well, they're floating in like a blood lake, basically, but it's just red, it's just red colored water.
Yeah, it just looks like Kool-Aid. It's like pink lemonade.
So they're like
So she like
falls into the water.
She drowns and somehow gets stripped in that same process.
And then drowned naked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And then Fantasy kind of just mentally breaks.
Yeah.
And sort of accepts death from the aunt.
She's the aunt who's at this point in the form of Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, Fantasy goes to Gorgeous and she's like, "Please save me. I thought you were a ghost, but you're here. Thank you." And then Gorgeous is just like, "I know." And eats her. So.
Yeah. Gorgeous is like, ooh, ooh.
So then we have the last scene with the stepmom showing up, and
she finds Mr. Togo as a pile of bananas.
She does find a pile of bananas sitting in a car.
But she just doesn't say anything about it. She doesn't say anything, really.
And she's so, like, suspiciously, like, nonplussed about it that we thought that she knew what was going on.
No, throughout the whole, every time we see her, she's such a non-character, and the way they present her as just this, like, almost floating, ghostly, beautiful woman that every time, like when they introduce her in the beginning of the movie, me knowing nothing about where it's gonna go is like, okay, so she's supernatural somehow.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, when she shows up, you still are like, is she connected to it all somehow? Because they don't, like, she's just a normal person in the narrative, but they present her in such a, like, weird way. I guess they're trying to, like, emphasize, like, her beauty as the contrast with the house's desires. I don't know. I feel like I would like the movie better if the stepmom and all the like narrative stuff around that was like not there or changed a lot.
I would think I would have liked it if the stepmom had gone with them and like the stepmom was trying to protect them from the house.
But she doesn't seem to care about anything that's happening either.
No.
Even when
but that could have been a good way of like that could have been a good way of like getting Gorgeous to like or like making Gorgeous realize that like this new stepmom would actually love her or whatever.
Yeah, the movie doesn't seem particularly concerned about that plot arc that they introduce in the first 25 minutes. Though.
Yeah.
But like with all the stepmom, she doesn't really have a reason to go to the house. It's just like, oh, I hate my stepmom, and we're going to my aunt for the summer because she's the closest thing I have to my mom. Yikes.
Yikes. Red flag. My stepmom, who I haven't seen in years, is the closest thing to my mom.
With the weird cat that keeps.
Red flag.
So overall thoughts, how do we actually feel about this movie?
I think it was very, very strange. But not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like an Evil Dead, like a Sam Raimi movie, but like kind of done incompetently, you know?
Yeah, it's just the balance of, because it's
because like Sam Raimi is like intentionally horror comedy. This feels like
it's
mostly trying to be horror,
but
it's done so either over the top or incompetently that it swings all the way back.
There are things that are clearly meant to be comedy, like Kung Fu doing action stuff, or the entire Mr. Togo's Bizarre Adventure subplot,
or like the whole first act.
Yeah, but then there's things that just don't feel like they're supposed to be funny that end up being kind of funny or jarring.
Yeah.
I also, I can't watch horror movies like this because I start like, I like deflect fear by nitpicking. So I'm like,
we deflect fear by making comedy like
jokes.
Normal people.
Yeah, I don't like. I nitpick horror.
Hey, did you see that girl? Looks like she's getting ahead.
Lauren, what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was pretty good. I actually liked it. I just think it's one of those movies where like you just can't care about what's going on. You just have to be like, oh, sick.
Yes.
A floating head.
Enjoy the ride.
Yeah. It's not something you have to be like invested in.
Yeah, I can't say I liked it or disliked it. I was very middle.
I enjoyed the effects. It was fun.
Yeah,
I definitely.
There's a campiness to it that is fun.
But what we think is irrelevant. What did the audience think? Apparently, this movie was not received well, at least not by critics. But it seems to have gotten a cult following, especially with like the fact that like people like Dario Argento and Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson have taken really big influence.
Oh god,
from this
Peter
series.
Jackson was inspired by this when he made Meet the Feebles! Meet the Feebles!
I feel like this is more of an influence of his stuff like Dead Alive, though.
Yeah, no.
I think it's very clear why Dario Argento really liked it. It has like that kind of like giallo kind of vibe. It's just like no holds barred. Things are gonna happen.
If you cut out all the comedy, this would basically just be his version of Suspiria.
Sure.
Sorry.
Raggedy Ann.
Raggedy Ann and Andy. Fear.
So while I was positive, rather like middle of the road on House, it was not. Raggedy Ann and Andy was a painful experience.
It was.
So Raggedy Ann and Andy. Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure.
Musical. It's a music.
It's a 1977 live-action animated musical fantasy film directed by Richard Williams. Is this the same Richard Williams who did Thief and the Cobbler? Yes, it is.
Epic.
So in between bankrupting himself trying to make The Thief and the Cobbler. And
a funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
And a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. And revolutionizing the animation industry by making Roger Rabbit. Richard Williams made this pile of shit.
Raggedy Ann and Andy.
Produced by Bob Merrill Company, blah blah blah.
So this is
publishing out.
This is the kind of cursed movie.
This doesn't explain anything about the movie.
No, it's not. We'll just talk about it.
It's very sponsored by Raggedy Ann and Andy, the brand.
Which adds a little bit of fear, considering that Raggedy Ann is like the most cursed doll of all time.
Yeah, there is something inherently cursed.
Insert image of cursed Raggedy Ann doll here.
Yeah, my grandma, at my grandma's house, there is a Raggedy Ann doll that my great grandmother physically made that is like 100 years old, and it is vaguely creepy.
But
that's my experience with
But is it
Raggedy Ann.
infused with the power of like 17 devils?
No, it is not, unfortunately.
Love you, Annabelle.
Love you, Annabelle. Shout out to
everyone's favorite.
Raggedy Ann and
doll.
Andy starts out basically.
It starts out basically like a horror. First it starts out like a carbon copy of Toy Story.
It's basically Toy Story before Toy Story.
So many movies have taken some type of inspiration from this.
So we have a concept, when he said it was live action animated, basically there's a real life little girl, she has a real life room of toys, then once she leaves the room all the toys come to life and start moving. So it's Toy
the
Story. Same concept
It's
as
literally Toy Story. There's even a new toy that's taking the girl's attention away from the others. But rather than be jealous, they're very welcoming for the new toy.
The plot gets kicked off by a new toy named Babette being introduced, and Raggedy Ann and Andy sing songs. I just like to say, the fact that I hated this movie has more to do with it being a musical than any other one thing that it did. Because my least favorite type of thing is the musical where
the songs
just stop the movie and they're like, I'm a goofy character that we just introduced and I'm gonna sing about random bullshit, and that's basically
there's like 5 songs like that.
Okay, so the beginning of the movie is basically like the start of a It's almost like a weird combination of Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2's beginning.
It's like a combination it's like
because you have a new toy that's drawing the attention of all the other toys. Then you have a toy that is up on a shelf that's been abandoned.
A mustachio toy who may or may not have been abandoned.
He's like a
Yosemite Sam pirate. He also has a parrot named Wheezy, which makes the comparisons to the Toy Story 2 character even more apt.
And he wheezes snowflakes.
Yes.
From the snow globe.
He
immediately gets horny for Babette.
Yes.
And tries to steal her.
Raggedy Ann makes the mistake of helping him down, and then him and his pirate crew immediately kidnap Babette.
Yeah.
A doll that's like 5 times his size.
Yes. Yeah, there's a weird perspective shot where we see Raggedy Ann looking into these, water glass that
and we see later in the movie the pirate ship is like the size of Anne.
Yeah, well that scene implies that Anne is like as big as the entire pirate ship, and then later in the movie there's a climactic scene on the pirate ship, and the pirate and the ship are just like
regular size.
Like the proportions are completely changed.
And Babette is like 4 times bigger than anything else.
Yeah, which is consistent throughout the movie, I think.
They draw her bigger, but
Babette is a giantess.
Yes.
And the pirate wants her to step on
woman.
So the whole plot is if there was a plot, it's that they decided to go save Babette from the captain.
And then along the way they meet a bunch of wacky and hilarious characters.
The beginning is like Toy Story 1 with the new toy, and Toy Story 2 with the our friend got taken, we gotta go rescue them.
And it's kind of like maybe Toy Story 4 where it just kind of turns into a road trip movie.
Yeah, except for once they leave the house, everything goes. I was already mildly annoyed by this movie before because I felt like Raggedy Ann, the main character, was the worst
bad voice.
Also, Raggedy Ann. Okay, so the animation is interesting.
Raggedy is actually really good.
Yeah, Raggedy Ann is animated like a floppy doll, and they do cool stuff with that. And then we have Raggedy Andy, her brother / maybe lover.
Who knows?
There's very weirdly.
They have weird sexual
Raggedy
energy.
Incest.
They're just very handsy.
Yeah, and Andy. Okay, whoever animated Andy did not get the memo that these were supposed to be floppy, flat dolls because Andy has the most toned ass, more toned than anyone in any of the other movies we watched.
Every time.
Face down, ass up.
Always.
So Anne and Andy leave the house, and this is where things take it. Before it's just kind of like discount Toy Story. Then things go very wrong. Because first Andy sings a 5-minute song about paper flowers, during which...
It's like a love song to Raggedy Ann.
Yeah, but then later they're like, oh, brother and sister.
This is my sister.
Yeah. I was completely...
What are you doing, bro?
Yeah. Kirk mixed a drink for me that was
Terrible.
bad. I bought like a
Frozen margarita. I didn't know how to make it. I didn't know how to make it.
You didn't know how to make it, and I don't think
first I poured it in a glass full of ice. Then I had to pour it out into a different glass.
I don't think the product was good to begin with, and then he didn't know how to make it. So it was I drank like half of it. But anyway,
it wasn't very good. So
then we go from that sequence, from a 5-minute Paper Flowers song to we meet a camel with a deep south accent, a blue camel toy who is very depressed and frequently sees visions of death. Basically, that's what those hallucinations are.
Yeah.
And then each part of the movie at this point feels like it's on a different drug. Like the Camels song feels like it's like on having a downer episode.
Yeah, it's like overdosing on Xanax and NyQuil.
Yeah, and then they fall into a pit where there's this absolutely terrifying candy monster.
There's so many like we didn't mention it before, but like the beginning of this movie has like terrifying naked dolls. And the rest of the dolls are not eye lookers either. They're very horrifying.
Yeah, everything is vaguely unsettling.
And like they get like 5 songs where like they dance
these little mini sequences where it's just the naked dolls on screen. And it's weird because they're
the first time it happened I shouted fear.
It's weird because their bodies are like
realistic.
Their bodies are realistic and have a skin tone that is sort of like pseudo black. But then their faces and heads are not at all.
It just
looks weird. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
It looks like
but then their heads are like a completely different.
Like it's just a normal doll.
Yeah.
Right.
And then their heads are like a completely different.
And they're always
shade, and it's weird, and
then like there's other dolls that look like they're weird
Frankenstein
abominations, which led us to the theory that this is actually a Toy Story prequel movie that takes place in Sid's house.
This is Sid. These are Sid's sister's toys.
Before Sid's parents divorced and Sid became a toxic abuser to his little sister.
But there's still a small element of fear. So back to the horrifying candy monster scene. It's basically this like gelatinous mass of like candy.
Well, at first it was like quicksand almost.
Yes.
Like, okay, cool.
It's like
quicksand. And all of a sudden there's candy everywhere, and there's mouth that's just like a hole.
No, first we see like this massive ass.
Yes, this movie is weirdly horny.
Yeah.
There's several shots of this molding candy monster where it takes on vaguely sexual forms while it's singing about needing
needing a sweetheart.
Yes.
But
this is where we get to what I really hate about this movie.
I never get it. No.
It's very much a combination. I felt, what did I compare it to? Like the Great Mighty Pooh cross. There was something else that I was very specifically. I was like Great Mighty Pooh cross. Something else. But
I remember saying I hate that you're right about.
It was also basically the same concept as that episode of Gravity Falls where there's the monster made out of rejected candy.
We kept saying that like so many things ripped this movie off.
Yes.
Toy Story.
I wouldn't be surprised. Alex Hirsch is the type of cartoonist who would have watched this growing up and taken inspiration from it for that episode.
Alice in Wonderland by 30 years prior.
Yeah, this movie basically becomes like Alice in Wonderland after they leave the house.
As soon as they leave the house, they forget about Babette.
Yeah, they get distracted by like dumb shit. But this is where we get to what I really hate about this movie. Because it's a musical, and a musical where the plot has to stop for a song every 5 seconds, every horrifying sequence they introduce, like it's not enough to just have this gelatinous candy monster. We have to suffer through a 5-minute song of watching them sing about how they need a sweetheart. Like if this wasn't a musical, that'd be over and done fast, and we'd be like, thank God, move on. So every horrible thing they introduced, I was like, oh God, what is this? And then about a minute later, I would go, oh God, they have a song.
Oh sweet Jesus fuck, they have a song.
Well, like the thing after the sweetheart was like this weird night thing, but he was like very like.
It's like he
flamboyant clown
Like,
nightmare.
He reminded us of like a
Gay.
combination of like Goofy and Nigel Thornberry, and then I made a joke about who's the bigger Dom, Goofy or Nigel Thornberry.
No, but he's just like intentionally ruining their lives.
Yes, yeah, he's fucking with them, and then they start running away from him. The camel
chases them into essentially the thief, that mindfuck scene in The Thief and the Cobbler.
The blue camel has joined their group at this point. He's just like traveling.
He's just their Eeyore friend.
He wants he's just their sad Eeyore friend.
I made a joke that this is basically just the journey to the West.
Yeah, so now we go into the full-on Alice in Wonderland, like this. Okay, if the candy molding sequence was like, if the camel song was like a bad Xanax trip, and the candy molding song was like a, I don't know what we compared that to.
A bad high.
It's a bad
high. Then this next sequence is
it's like you took a bad gummy.
I was gonna say this next sequence is where they go on crack, because we descend into this weird Alice in Wonderland-esque kingdom run by a king who is very small, very short.
It's like someone took acid and then took.
Yes, yeah, and he's insecure about his tininess, but the more he laughs, the bigger he gets. So he has this kingdom of clown people, basically. Think like the Mary Poppins scene where the dude laughs and he flies to the roof by laughing. But combined with an inflation fetish and also like screaming and laughing and
it's
chaos.
Very irritating.
An incredibly overwhelming and irritating scene that follows several already irritating scenes. And of course, there's a song here-ish.
His entire
it's all a
court
blur.
is people that are like, they're like clown-esque, but like toys.
And
they're like mashed together. And the
Tin Man Clown Knight is still there as well.
And he's like making things worse. Like he's like negging this king.
Yeah.
To like you try to either kill Raggedy Ann and Andy or like
he's like
keep them
about to
prisoner.
execute them, and like Raggedy Ann does some like self-love bullshit.
I don't know.
And then like someone does a comedic pratfall. We see Raggedy Andy's ass.
Yeah.
And the king starts
Why
laughing.
do we see? I swear Raggedy Ann is crawling or like falling on the ground like half the time we see him. What is this dude's deal? Why was the animator like looking for any excuse they can to show Andy's toned ass?
Andy's toned butt cheeks.
So then they escape this king lair.
There's the Tin Man behind.
This sequence was 5 minutes long, but it felt like an hour. I can't even talk about it because it was just pure like overwhelming irritation.
Yeah.
The fear that we were experiencing in the beginning of the movie has completely evaporated by this point.
I think from the camel's introduction to this scene is like Meet the Feebles level painful. For me, it was.
Jesus.
The rest of the movie is like just normal bad, but like this middle part.
I was kind of getting some enjoyment just how bad it is.
It combined my hatred of musicals where the plot stops for nonsense with everything I hated about Meet the Feebles.
Minus the gross out.
Minus the like sexualness of it. For the most part, there are moments.
The captain is very horny.
It's like horny.
Yeah, so they escape. The king calls up this slime monster thing. Not the candy monster, a different fucking gelatinous slime being.
This one's green.
And
apparently aquatic.
Yes, he calls them up to like chase the main crew. So then the main group hijacks a boat, manages to get out onto the water where the pirate ship is. Babette has, in a nice twist, Babette has taken over the pirate ship.
Like another movie that can rip this off. The concept of feminism.
I was gonna say Pirates of the Caribbean, whichever Pirates of the Caribbean it is, where the girl takes
the third
over.
one.
Yeah, the third one.
I was just making like a Frozen joke. Where it's like,
let's see.
girl power, yas, queen.
So Babette has taken over the ship. They get on the ship. Everything goes to complete
Lauren looks so sick of my shit.
Only a little.
everything goes to complete shit when the king shows up on his slime beast, laughing and screaming and shitting his pants. And like,
well, like the whole thing with Babette is like she's like leading the ship and she just doesn't want to leave, and Raggedy Ann is like, what? Why?
I want to go to Paris.
She's like, I want to go to Paris.
yeah, she has a massive.
We want to go
And she's an opera singer.
Paris, where the Frenchmen say bonjour.
And the actual pirate captain is like locked up in the brig with his
she
parrot.
locked him up.
So he escapes. Babette and Raggedy Ann are arguing. He escapes.
Does he escape?
Yeah.
I think he did, but
He's
it's easy to forget because it's literally just like he escapes as this king is attacking the boat. So there are literally
They
like
also
5
look
things
very
going on in
similar.
this
They
scene.
both have like red mustaches.
Yeah. So there's like 5
I
things
must
going
watch
on
this
in this
video.
scene at once.
Like,
And it ends with the king literally laughing so much that he inflates into a giant like balloon. Inflation fetish.
And then
and then pops and he
Yeah.
explodes, and then we get the one part of the movie that I actually legit like. Did you
because the
drop
characters
something?
seem to die.
No, that's not what I was gonna say. Okay, so at the peak of all this chaos, when he explodes, everything explodes, we hard cut back to the live action that we haven't seen for like an hour. This movie has completely detached itself from the reality of the beginning at this point, and then we cut back to live action. All the toys are out in the backyard in front of like a pond, and this pond was the ocean they were on. They're all the toys are just like flopped on the ground. The little girl's out there. The little girl from the beginning is out there, and she just goes, "What's going on here?"
How
And then
did you
starts
get out
collecting.
here?
Yeah, how did you get out here? And then starts collecting all the toys. And I
she's
like
so confused.
I
She's
like that
what?
bit because it connects everything else back to the Toy Story reality of like, oh, this massive ocean they were on was just a pond. Oh, this massive forest they wandered through was just the grass of the backyard. They literally made it like a few feet away from the house before everything went to complete shit.
Right.
But
So-
it still doesn't explain the candy.
It still doesn't explain the
We
horrifying
assume.
candy.
I think we came to the conclusion that it was probably like a glob of ice cream or like
Yeah,
just congealed candy.
that the kid had like dropped and left there. Like, yeah. So then it's like, okay, back to reality. We're grounded. It was also
Snap back to reality.
It was also a very funny hard cut between like pure animated chaos and then the little girl being like,
There's actually
"How
some
did
pretty
you
good
get out
transitions
here?"
like
Yeah.
that.
That was the best part of the movie for me, was just that like the hard cut to live action. And then she collects all the toys, takes them back inside, forgets about the camel because she doesn't
like
see it.
depressed in the
The poor
yard and had
camel.
like a
I
pile
thought-
of leaves. It's very upsetting. And then like
He has another hallucinogenic episode.
and it reveals that this like the moon that he was looking at
Yeah,
too.
it was actually the window, the
It was
girl's
just a
window.
window.
He somehow climbs up there and then gets accepted into the toy family.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm like, thank God the Laughing King is gone. All the fear is gone. Now the movie's just discount.
Well, not
toys.
all the fear because the naked dolls are still there.
Yes, the naked
Yeah.
dolls are still there, but I'll take the naked dolls over everything that happened in the second act. They're basically the first act. They're in the house. Second act.
It's fine. The first act
Second
is fine.
act, they leave the house and things just go to complete shit, which I guess was the idea, is like, oh, these toys are leaving the house and they're completely overwhelmed by the world.
But what actually happens is
It's
they
just
leave the
a
house
fever
and the movie
an
goes
hour-long
bad.
fever dream. And then the third act is like, oh, thank God, they're back to the house. Things are calm again. The camel is accepted as a part of their family.
Is he though? Because when the girl shows back up and finds the camel, she
It's like
looks.
massive. It's a massive
It's
camel.
huge.
It's
It's like
a
this
It's like the
size
size
This
of her.
stuffed, awkward patchwork camel.
And she
like,
looks really
she looks like,
unhappy
she,
about
She definitely
this.
looks like, what is this
She's
thing?
like
And then she kind of
confused,
hugs
and then
it.
she just kind of like tucks it under her arm.
The little girl-
without-
the
Gives
little-
the most forced smile
The
I've
little
ever
girl
seen.
is not a good actor at all. The
She's
first line she
completely
says is like,
Yeah, you should-
We had to
She
watch.
can't
We
talk.
watched a bad YouTube riff of this because that's all that was available.
Just how it was.
yeah.
And
Well,
like
this is the
there
type
were no
of,
subtitles.
okay,
there was
hold on.
nothing.
I'm looking. The film saw little to no distribution. It was aired one night on CBS, and it was released on the CED video disc system no DVD.
It did receive a considerable amount of play on the Disney Channel during the late 80s and early 90s.
Why?
As well, because that's when they didn't have any other programming.
This is basically like this was very easy to find on YouTube because nobody. This is like the. Well, the camera ran out of storage space while we were talking about how Raggedy Ann is a piece of lost media.
That's okay though, because I showed them some other lost media
so now that part of the
video. The footage.
Now that part of the video is lost media. Apparently there were stage adaptations that are also lost media because nobody wants to remember Raggedy Ann and Andy's musical event.
I choose to forget it.
Even Nostalgia Critic would not remember it.
No, he does remember it. He put it on a video.
Has he ever
Top 11 mindfucks.
Oh my god. Top 11!
Why top 11? Because crazy!
Because crazy funny joke! So then while
I like to abuse my coworkers.
So then while I was clearing the camera storage space, Kirk made us watch other pieces of lost media.
One of which is called Clockman.
Pinwheel Clockman.
Pinwheel Clockman.
Some like Nickelodeon adaptation. Some like Nickelodeon
book
adaptation of some like book
like
adapted from
Eastern European.
Yeah, right. I feel like there's a much more horrifying version of that story that's some Eastern European cautionary tale for children.
It seemed like it was going to go wrong.
Then there's the made appropriate for kids book adaptation of it, and then there's this, which is an adaptation of that book adaptation. At least that's how I see it.
Basically, it's about a girl named Sally who lies about losing her glove,
and a wizard offers her.
And the wizard offers her a replacement, but because she lied, he kidnaps her to make stars for him.
The replacement glove just looks like a human hand. That's a Yoshikage Kira. Kira moment.
My name is Pinwheel Clockman.
Oh.
I am 33 years old, and I live in the upper part, and I live in the northern part of Moria.
There was something vaguely...
I don't smoke, but I do occasionally drink. Every night I do 30 minutes of aerobic exercises before going to bed with a warm glass of milk where I sleep.
Kirk, you realize you're now going to need to make an edit of Pinwheel Clockman as Yoshikage Kira.
What's his stand gonna be?
Star Platinum.
Star comma
His
platinum.
stand can be like a crack. Because we also watched some weird short about cracks and
not like the drug cracks.
Like a wall crack. Both of these pieces of media felt vaguely like I had seen them before, because they both fall into the category of vaguely familiar fever dream, which is also what Raggedy Ann would feel like if I had ever seen Raggedy Ann before. So it all matches up.
Cracks is an animated musical insert produced by Sesame Street in the 1970s. A young girl is unable to go outside to play because of the rain, so she imagines cracks in her walls form a camel.
Yeah, the camel. We're consistent.
However, the insert was later
here.
dubbed and aired. Oh, you might have actually seen it.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen both cracks
on
and
Plaza Sésamo.
Okay, but that's Spanish Sesame Street. I don't know. I'm convinced both of these feel vaguely like my teachers might have shown them to me in elementary school and I just forgot about them.
Let's also look up what we can find on Pinwheel.
Like, if I haven't seen Pinwheel Clockman, I've seen something animated in the same style that was also an adaptation of a cautionary tale book at one point or another. A 30-year mystery put to rest. This was like actual lost media
yes.
a few years ago?
That's gotta be disappointing.
Well, you know why?
What? Disappointing that it was lost or disappointing that it was found?
Yes.
Bam.
Well, I can tell you why it was lost media. Because it's not called Pinwheel Clockman. It's called Sally, the story about Clockman that aired on Pinwheel.
I see.
So no one actually remembers the story. They just remember vague nightmares they had about it that all get more distorted over time.
And the Cracks is the same way. So we've just talked about.
Welcome to Candle Club.
Yeah. So
We just went down a horrible rabbit hole of lost media.
But anyway,
Let's talk about.
fuck Raggedy Ann.
Let's talk about the movie
Black Christmas.
Black Christmas, the one that Lauren recommended that was not. That was like semi-normal.
It's a good
Thank
movie.
you, Lauren,
The
for
one-
balancing the chaotic energy of this.
Excuse me, I was gonna show you Suspiria.
That's true, but I think I feel
I've
like
suggested that we have a Suspiria episode where you watch the first one and then the most recent one together.
And then maybe something else.
yeah, like
Another Dario Argento.
another
Dario-
cursed children's film.
No, another Dario Argento's Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, did he make that? That live-action Phantom movie? Interesting.
Rats.
No, not the. He didn't make the musical one.
Oh,
You know what he made?
what?
The one with the rats.
Rats, we are the rats, celebrating yet another birthday.
Oh, you wish
Michael,
it.
it's
You
your
wish it
birthday.
was like
Cake and
that.
ice cream is on its way.
You wish it was like that.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the maker of Rat Movie, Mr. Germa, had watched any of these cursed childhood media pieces as a
Black Christmas, aka
kid. Yes.
the
please.
movie with the
Moving
bad,
on from
the movie with the terrible tagline.
Wait, originally titled Silent Night, Evil Night in the United States. That's a much worse name. That's a
Yeah.
much worse title.
It's also really generic. It's also like a ripoff of like a bunch of movies that had a similar name concept.
Yeah. But it doesn't, who cares?
Like there's Black Christmas, then there's Silent, like Deadly Night, then there's like Silent Night, Violent Night,
Oh,
and then there's Santa's Sleigh. Anyway,
Here comes Santa
if this
Claus,
picture
here
doesn't
comes
make
Santa
your
Claus,
skin
here
crawl,
comes Santa
it's
Claus.
on too tight.
I like it, but no.
That's a good
You like
tag.
the movie, but not the tagline.
I like the tagline as well. Just
That's a
because
good.
this movie
That'd be a perfect tagline
for a different movie.
for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So it's a Canadian slasher film, but like considered the first slasher film really by most Americans, I suppose, and maybe
It's a slasher film in all but name.
It's interesting though, and I don't know if this is.
Like, Halloween is considered the first slasher film because that's the film that actually called itself
Yeah.
a slasher film.
What I like about this, and I guess I don't know if that's a product of it being proto slasher or not, but it's not like the what you would expect.
It's
of
not
like a
so
bad
It's not so beholden to genre like other slasher
Yeah,
movies
it's
tend
not
to
like we gotta a person's gotta die every 10 minutes. The slasher of the film kills a girl in like the first 10 minutes, and then for another like half
There's
hour
like a
or
huge
so.
drought of kills in this movie.
He just waits. He waits until this. He acts, and I think that's what actually makes this movie a lot more creepy to me than something like House. He acts like an actual crazy slasher who killed somebody and hid them in an attic of a sorority house would act. Like he'd be hiding up there and like killing anybody who came close
and
to
he's got
finding
some
out.
Kind of trauma
He's
about
got some kind of trauma about.
killing Agnes.
But it's never explained because it doesn't need to be.
And the fact that
explained.
it's not explained makes him like a creepier myth.
Like, it couldn't be,
Mythos
for all we know, it couldn't be a trauma. He could just be
He
like
could just
that
be-
crazy.
Yeah. So it's kind of like,
Like, just that far gone.
yeah, it almost like bucks. I'd say it's the most like realistic horror I've ever seen. Cause like, even in the way that like.
I feel like I need to show you more horror movies.
Yeah, I don't watch that much horror, but.
As someone who watches a lot of horror, I love this movie.
It's a very good horror movie. It's one of the best slashers.
And apparently it's based on the urban legend with the babysitter and the man upstairs, which we all know, and usually involves a clown statue.
There's no clown statues in this movie.
Upsetting.
However,
Very upsetting.
every time I look at this poster for the film
You think it's a clown?
No, well, every time I look at it from this distance, it literally looks like the Joker poster where he's got his hands out and he has the hair.
I don't like that.
I'm definitely downloading that poster image and putting Joker over it.
Okay, this is actually kind of.
And it's
Actually, like, for once, I'm actually going to read you, like, the starting of the Wikipedia on this because it's actually interesting. Black Christmas, originally titled Silent Night, Evil Night in the United States, is a 1974 Canadian slasher film produced and directed by Bob Clark and written by A. Roy Moore. It stars Olivia Hussey, Kira Dalia, Margot Kidder.
Was that Barb?
yeah.
The
Yeah.
best character?
Best character Barb. Ignore that one time where she said townies can't be raped.
Yeah.
Andrea Martin Wildman, Lynn Griffin, and John Saxon. The story follows a group of sorority sisters who receive threatening phone calls and are eventually stalked and murdered by a deranged killer during the Christmas season. Inspired by, like Lauren said, inspired by the urban legend of the babysitter and the man upstairs, a series of murders takes place
It's also inspired by actual murders.
in Weston neighborhood of Montreal, Quebec. Moore
West
wrote this
Mountain,
screenplay
Quebec.
under the title Stop Me.
We're just
Filmmakers made numerous alterations to the script, primarily the shifting to the university setting with young adult characters. It was shot in Toronto in 1974 on an estimated budget of $620,000, and it was distributed by Warner Bros. Upon its release, Black Christmas received critics reviews, but it since received critical reappraisal, with film historians noting it's being one of the earliest fast slasher films. It's also praised for its influence on John Carpenter's Halloween.
Yeah.
Aside from earning its full calling, since its release, a novelization written by Lee Hayes was published in 1976.
There was also
This film is the first film in the Black Christmas series, being followed by a 2006 remake. Yikes.
and a 2019 remake, which
Also
I have
yikes.
never heard of. That came out last year, and I've never heard
The
of
film
this
has since received retroactive recognition and has been regarded as one of the greatest horror films.
Yes, so it's a cult
That is
classic that
honestly
inspired
probably-
horror. Like, we just basically outside of going into the plot, we just summed up the appeal of the movie.
Well, but that was only a little bit of.
No, yeah, I'm not saying we should stop talking. The other thing I really liked was the university setting.
I feel like that is a better one. It feels less. It would have felt less like a carbon copy, but 4 years earlier of Halloween, by not making it set in like a suburban neighborhood starring a babysitter.
Yeah.
Well, this predates Halloween.
I know, but you know.
Yeah, but it would. But yeah.
Retroactive
Right.
ripping off.
So.
The university setting gives it a little bit more.
I think this is just a very smart movie. They do a lot of POV shots from the killer's perspective as he's sneaking around the house.
This makes way better use of the POV camera than Halloween or Friday the 13th did.
Yeah, because you see him climbing out of the attic. He basically hides in the attic. He kills this girl in the first 10 minutes while they're all having there's a Halloween or Christmas party. It's a Christmas party. It's Black Christmas movie-ish. He kills this girl and keeps her body up in the attic, and then we have a nice there's a nice semi-realistic progression of it takes them a while to figure out she's missing, and there's this process of oh, maybe she's missing. Barb is an icon. Barb is the only one who seems really all that concerned about where she is.
With her, as Lauren said, her choker and her no bra.
Yeah, Barb is the girl in the sorority who's no filter, very I don't know how open with her sexuality, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
what word
probably a
exactly
good way
to
of putting
describe it.
The vague
But-
alcoholism.
Yeah.
Vague alcoholism,
Vague
open with her sexuality, doesn't take shits from anybody.
Yeah. that entire sequence, the
Love stuff
premature
about
ejaculation joke is yeah. She
there's
felt
like a 2-minute build up to just a premature ejaculation joke and
that she makes to the missing girl's father.
and then she like gets super depressed.
Yeah, that's such a great scene because like everybody else in the room is like holding back their laughter and the father is very prudish. So like
yeah,
it's this like
Also, like every like other like there's only like 2 girls in the house or 3 girls in the house because it's Christmas break and such. But like they all have like good characterization.
Yeah, they all have good characterization.
And, like actually good stuff.
It's much better characterization than like House, where all the girls had their like stock personality traits.
Yeah, this is actually it's kind of weird how similar to House this
Both take place. Both have a killer that operates largely within one house, and make a lot of their tension out of the like tight spaces of the one like house.
Well,
Sorry, I don't mean to stop the conversation. I just want to read you guys this critic quote by Gene Siskel. 1.5 stars out of 4.
Oof.
It's called a routine shocker that is notable only for indicating the kind of junk roles that talented actresses are forced to play in the movies.
Man. Yeah,
Damn,
it was like critically mixed at the time, but now it's like
Also, Siskel and Ebert are hacks.
but now it's like a lot. Now it's a lot more. I also like that the house mom of their sorority is like she'll find their hidden alcohol stashes and just drink them.
I think those are her stashes, to be
Or
honest.
they're
to be honest,
they
could be both.
anybody's stash. Well, okay, there's that one scene where she's in the bathroom looking for a stash, and then she finds it in the toilet, which is
That was
gross.
disgusting.
But clearly she was looking for it, not knowing where it was in that scene.
Well, even then, like.
Well,
it
she
could be
probably didn't
something that
remember where it was.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. It
'Cause
doesn't.
It's all the same kind of alcohol. Like it's all the
That's
same
true.
bottle and type.
It does not matter at all.
It's fine.
Yes,
It's
there's
very funny.
there's like comedy, but it's like understated comedy. It's not like House where like this is funny funny Togo bizarre adventure man.
Bananas!
Bananas.
Turns into a skeleton.
Okay, there were. No, you know what? No more bananas.
No more bananas.
This one also had a white cat.
It
This
looks
one did also have a white
exactly
cat
the
that
same
looked like the one
white
in
cat
House.
in House.
That was weird.
Like, I think it might be the same type of
The
cat.
cat is the only one to actually find the main girl's body, and then the cat leads the house mom up into the attic, and then the house.
There's actually a really
and the
good
house
reveal
mom
at the
gets
end of the
killed.
movie where we see the girl in the attic and like there's a window next to her, so you're kind of like thinking the whole movie like, how is no one able to see this?
Yeah, and then
at the very end of the movie, we zoom out from the window to where the body actually is on in the house,
And you-
it's like tucked away in the top corner of this house, covered in shadow.
It's like
because there's like
3
all these
three
different
stories
sources of
tall.
lights
Yeah.
going in all different
That-
directions.
yeah,
and
and-
it's like 3 to 5 stories tall.
That's the last shot of the movie.
There's
We just
no
do
way
nothing.
anyone could find that body.
Although it is a bit ridiculous that the police who were called on to this case after thinking that a certain we'll get to that, but essentially
This movie is very anti-cop though.
yeah, the cops are dumb. How do they not scour the whole house looking for bodies
It's not
after stopping who
necessarily
they think is
anti-cop.
the
I
killer?
think it's just more of a realistic representation of cops in general, in the sense that like there's some that are good and then some that are just dumbasses.
And the dumbasses drag everyone down.
Yes, because like the detective Ken, who looks like Zac Efron.
He literally
He looks like Zac. He could be Zac.
We were
It is so.
we were
unnerving.
comparing actors to other actors they look like the whole
There's a
time.
person in this that looks like a young Peter Dinklage if he didn't have dwarfism.
Yeah. But
There's an actor who looks exactly like Peter Gabriel.
yeah, but the detective in particular literally like give Zac Efron the haircut he had in the Ted Bundy movie and give him some like forehead wrinkles and he
You'll see
literally
his
would be
hairline a little bit,
indistinguishable
Yeah.
from this guy. It's weird. It's
That's
uncanny.
Really uncanny.
It's He's
a
in a
mouse.
lot of westerns. I'm doing it my way.
My way.
So it's John Saxon who is in a lot of horror movies and westerns. And
Usually
always
playing
like
the character
cops.
he plays here.
Or
Yes,
like
the
detectives. In this one he gave off like a very detective vibe, like a very Benoit Blanc.
So we were talking about Zac Efron, the Zac Efron
How
stand-in.
the detective looks like Zac Efron.
You were talking about how he's like a noir detective or something, like Bublé or
He is. Bublé?
Michael Bublé?
that classic noir detective,
Michael
like
Bublé.
Babs. Or something.
Anyway,
In Sinatra, you know?
so at first they're like, oh, we haven't seen the girl that died, her name's Claire, we haven't seen her in a while. And, you know, Barb is super concerned about it. Her actress is also really good. Like,
Yeah.
we were just saying she was
Margot
funny, but her
Kidder.
performance of, like, that character, this sort of, like,
Margot Kidder can
Yes.
do no wrong.
yes. It's interesting that we're talking about her more than the actual lead girl of the movie.
The lead girl was in Romeo and Juliet in the 1968 version.
1968, okay.
The one that you usually watch in high school.
Ah,
And it's the
yes.
one with the Zac Efron Romeo.
So the guy who looks like Zac Efron was also in that movie?
No.
No.
If it's from 1968, how can it have a Zac Efron Romeo? I'm so confused.
He just looks like Zac Efron.
He's another.
Everyone looks like Zac Efron.
No, Leonardo Wooden, yes.
Zac Efron.
He looks like the 60s version of Zac Efron.
Anyway, I don't know. We're really
Like
off
this is
topic.
what a
I
Zac
feel
Efron
like,
would look like if he was in the 60s.
I
rather
feel like
than
my
the 2000s.
fuel is dead. So somebody else like explain the movie while I rebuild.
It's
Okay.
like over like the span of a day.
More people turn up dead. They can't find the girl. More people either end up dead or go missing. And during all of this, our other sort of main female lead, Jess, is
The actual main female lead, Barb,
Yeah.
just kind of steals the spotlight for when she's alive because she's a better character. But Jess isn't bad. She's just kind of
just
milk
has
with
some-
toast by comparison in the terms of writing.
She just has more issues at the moment
Yeah.
than to be
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's-
so she's like pregnant and by her like awful boyfriend Peter.
Her
who
awful,
fucking
terrible
sucks.
boyfriend who looks like Peter Gabriel.
Yeah,
Peter.
she wants to get an abortion, but her boyfriend is like,
No, why didn't you consider me?
yes, and in a
Have you ever? Isn't there someone you forgot to ask about this?
and in a very, very dickish, condescending manner too.
But
It
at
get-
least they know like that it's being portrayed as he's being a
it
dick.
gets
and
it gets
not,
to the
like-
point where he seems like such a dick that he
becomes the primary
suspicious of
suspect.
him as being the killer, and they sort of red herring that. And then in the end, like, doesn't she? In the end, Jess kills him.
Yeah, because,
Because she thinks
he
he's
breaks
the
in,
killer.
he literally breaks into their house.
Yeah.
And
Comes
after she just found out that the killer has been spoilers, the killer has been in their house.
Yeah, the
all
cops
along.
figure this out after like 2 acts, and it's this big reveal for them, but for us, it's like, you know.
Because the killer had to be in the house
Yeah.
because we saw that they never left.
Yeah. Well, see, we know things they don't. But there's an interesting subplot of this person keeps calling them, who's obviously the killer. Like, it's, you know, those kind of like gross, like,
Pervy call.
If you've ever been a woman, you know the type of calls.
yes. But they get like increasingly intense, and the police start using
And
that.
increasingly like specific
Yes.
and like even referencing stuff that has actually happened in these
And the
characters'
police use these calls to trace the killer and figure out that the killer's in the house. I love the way they do the tracing.
They actually show how the tracing of a call
Yes,
works.
they show the
In
guy
the
in the call
1970s,
center
yeah.
tracing
In the
the
1970s.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is how it works today.
Yes, but they don't just do the call is instantly traced or we couldn't trace it for unexplained reasons. They show the guy. They use that to build tension. They show him.
They show that they tap the wire so that there's a line to the police station, and then there's also a line, and then there's someone at the police station in the call center who once they get the buzz, they go to look for where
They have to physically
line's
find it,
coming
which that's probably more of a 1970s.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
But they use that really well to build tension. Like they have him moving and getting there and like almost tapping it, and they'll cut back and forth. It's really well
It's
done.
like he maybe reaches the right aisle, but he just barely misses.
It's weird that the
misses it.
slasher film does the whole tapping phones thing better than any
most-
like cop show.
Yeah.
Better than literally every single
Yeah.
time. And granted, some of them the excuses, well, they're taking place in the digital age.
Yeah.
All that phone tapping via going to an actual location is old hat,
Yeah.
old man.
But it really works in terms of building.
Uses spray paint and skateboards away.
I mean, like, I don't know. I think it's the
A-
way it's set up is like you feel like it's happening over like weeks or like days at the very least, but it's like in the span of a day.
It's just that there's so much like
There's
just
a lot
emotionally
happening.
draining things going on.
Yeah, because
There's-
you get to see like all like angles of it.
They do a
Even though,
community
yeah.
search. They find some other dead, like a young dead girl who, for some reason, this killer was their first kill.
Because like the very first opening shot is him getting into the house. It's like
And
the
climbing
POV
in
shot.
through like a chimney.
Yeah.
I don't. How did he? Where did he climb in from?
I think he climbs in
He climbed up from like this
like a lattice.
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
kind of like a Knives Out.
He does also kill the cop who's supposed to be watching the house.
Yeah.
So at some point he sneaks out and back in, which
Yeah.
then makes you more suspicious of Peter because Peter goes in.
Peter's
and out.
been the only
There's-
character up to now.
There's one scene where the girl is taking a phone call. The lead girl, Jess, takes one of the creepy phone calls, and right after the person hangs up, Peter appears coming down the stairs.
Mhm.
So it's like
where
yeah.
we usually see the killer coming.
Yeah.
Killer coming from.
So they give you like reason to. And when the movie starts directly suspecting him, that's when I was like, oh, now they're red herring me, and it's not him.
Mhm.
But the thing is that it's also like there's so much evidence against him that
Yeah.
you
So much.
even though you know he's an obvious red herring, it's like
Well,
So-
he's still
but
a
he-
threat.
but
So-
he's still a
yeah.
threat.
So much that Jess ends up killing him at the end because she thinks because the killer was
I mean,
chasing
she has every
her.
right.
Yeah,
to think
no,
he did.
she
He
absolutely
literally
yeah.
breaks like she finds out the killer is in the house
The
in
kill-
that area,
yes.
and then
Because-
when she's in the basement
Because
hiding
the
from
fucking
the killer,
idiot
he
cop.
shows up outside
Because
and breaks in.
The freaking idiot cop who didn't know what fellatio was when Barb messed with him. The Zac Efron detective tells the cop, "Don't tell Jess that the killer is in the house. Just tell her to get out of the house." And he fucks it up by asking her, "Is anyone else there with you? You should get out." And then she's like concerned because she wants to go get her friends who are by this point are already dead. Barb and
Yeah, and I
what was
think-
the other girl's name? Phil.
Barb and
Phyllis.
Phyllis,
Yeah, Barb
I
and
think
Phyllis.
the cop put together by this point they are probably dead.
Yeah, well, like he would have known that, but then of course he's an idiot and he's like, the killer's in the house, you need to leave, and then of course she runs upstairs to do the opposite. But it's like, but I like the way they narratively frame it, so like, she's not stupid really
Yeah.
for doing that.
No.
It's him that's stupid for fucking up the instructions
Right.
he was given. The only characters who fumble stuff up are not the main characters, but the police who are supposed to be helping them,
Mhm.
which is interesting for like a 70s slasher.
Yeah. Well, the cops have always been incompetent in horror movies.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
and can't spell.
Partially it's because you can't have a horror movie if you have cops that are incompetent.
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 Yes.
but the fact that throughout the entire movie, they never find
the first girl.
They never find Claire or
the house mom.
Or the house mom.
Even after Jess kills Phil, they just assume Phil was the killer and then don't search the house.
Yeah.
They don't search the house thoroughly.
Right.
Dingus Clockman. Yes. I don't know. Do we have anything else to say about it? It's just a solid movie.
I think the abortion plot line is kind of interesting because like, you know, there's always that classic cliche commentary about how slasher movies are like these like commentaries on sexuality and like this reassertion of puritanical values. Regardless of how true that is, to be honest, most slasher movies don't really actually make sense when you look at them that way.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that what is considered the first slasher movie doesn't really have that, or at least if it does, it's coming from the opposite direction. The characters' sexualities are never viewed as something worthy of damning. It's the men in their lives that are the ones causing the problems.
It holds up very well. It's one of those movies that almost like works better now than it
probably
might have when it came out.
Well, because now we have the context of everything that's come after it.
Yeah.
So we understand that this isn't like some weird like fetish film or something, or like an attempt to like humanize a killer. We're like, oh no, this is a slasher movie. We know what a slasher movie is.
Well, it's just that it's a lot smarter than you would anticipate from like a 1970s like slasher movie, just because it's like it's like a little horror movie that was done on like little more than $500,000. Not like they
didn't have a huge.
That's what I think that's what I really liked about it is because I mentioned earlier that I have this tendency with those kinds of movies to like deflect by nitpicking.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was like smart enough that I couldn't like there was very little to nitpick about it.
And even then it was just about like characters.
And anything that you could nitpick was very like you could quickly counter.
Yeah.
Like it was like even at the end where they zoom out from the window and it's like, okay, how did they not see her in the attic window? Oh wait, we've zoomed out all the way. I can see how they wouldn't see her. Yeah. Like they almost address. It's a very intelligent script.
It had like genuinely scary moments.
Yeah.
And it's not like
the scene where Billy kills Barb is really graphic and horrifying.
Yeah, and especially.
It's actually more graphic than anything you'll see in like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I mean, like the first killing is like shocking, and like you feel like, oh shit, oh god, okay.
Yeah, it's so weird. This movie came out the same year as Texas Chainsaw, and this feels way more violent. Like Texas Chainsaw feels violent without actually being violent. This movie is like extremely uncomfortable and violent. Because the violence isn't over the top.
But it's the threat of violence.
It's incredibly simple and like it's incredibly simple but brutal.
The whole movie has
the
that
first
strength
girl
of
the first
like,
girl doesn't get like stabbed in the chest over and over with a comedically large knife. She just gets suffocated with a plastic bag.
The whole movie has that strength of being like smart and realistic with the way it presents its like slasher character.
And like I know Lauren's probably seen Texas Chainsaw, right?
Yeah.
And Coleman probably hasn't, but that contrasts well with Texas Chainsaw, which came out again the same year, another pioneer in the slasher genre, where the violence that we don't actually see a lot of violence on screen, but the violence that is implied to be happening is way more like grotesque and over the top.
Yeah.
But it creates this sort of It's interesting to see the contrast between a film that has simple but very on-screen and violent attacks, and a film that has very like over-the-top attacks but are always off-screen to create an assumed presence of violence.
Well, I think because you never really see Billy, and you're never really supposed to see Billy. Aside from like his POV.
You see his like
you only focus on his actions.
You'll see his like eyes,
his hands or his eye.
Yeah.
And that like
that makes him so much more terrifying than like anyone else.
It's just the way that they're consistent with how much people know. Like, they are always like making sure that like it's something that just kind of gets overlooked most times in horror movies these days. Like, it makes sense because they're very clear about what each characters know. Like, so the detective at first doesn't even know Claire's missing. Like, they don't tell him. They only tell like the local cops. So he's searching for like a missing girl. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
he's searching for the other missing girl.
Yeah, he's searching for like the little girl who died.
For the little girl whose mom like came in and she was like, "Hey, what the fuck?"
My 12-year-old, 13-year-old is missing.
And like I think he doesn't realize that like I don't think he realized like the kill happened in the same area as Claire went missing until he finds out that blowjob cop fucked up.
Fellatio cop. So for reference, Barb is like fucking with this cop and she's like,
"Oh, this man is dumb."
And so she says that like what
she leaves a fake number where it's like Fellatio 800 555.
No, I think she leaves like a fake name or something.
No.
Oh,
So
was it the number? Okay.
It's the
like the
extension.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And she spells out fellatio for the cop and he writes it down and doesn't get it. And then there's a funny scene later where the other cops are like
making fun of it.
This movie has like a nice comic horror balance rather than
it's not like I haven't seen it, but apparently Last House on the Left has like two comedic cops, but like because that movie is so much darker, it kind of creates this tonal dissonance.
Well, and the
where you have these cops that wouldn't feel out of place in like an Adam Sandler comedy, and then you have a character who has to deal with like threats of murder and violence and rape.
Yeah. Well, like in the context of the movies we've watched, it's not as like jumpy as House is.
No.
It's certainly not as crack-headed as Raggedy Ann, which... Do we want to transition into the exorcism of Raggedy Ann, or do we still...
Do we have any more thoughts we want to give on Black Christmas?
I feel like we can't explain it enough to do it justice.
Yeah,
you
just
definitely
watch
need
it.
to watch
it's
this
good.
movie.
It's real good.
Yeah.
But you know what isn't real good?
Raggedy Ann.
Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure, which we are going to now, we're going to stop here for a sec, and we are going to exercise Raggedy Ann and Andy.
I don't need to stop the recording.
Well, I need to go get Cat's DVD so that we can exercise.
I love how we just use the Cat's DVD all the time now. I wish I had the Raggedy Ann doll from my grandma's house. We'd just like whack it with the... It's very sturdy for an old toy doll.
So you can murder it?
Yes, so you can murder it, yes.
Raggedy Ann and Andy.
Having fun.
You have cursed this world with your blights for too long. You have unleashed unspeakable demons upon this earth, and you are to blame for the curse of Annabelle and all their shitty sequels. What do you have to say for your musical adventure?
Of fear!
Your game of decadence, decay, and rot. What do you have to say for your crimes against humanity? Avasti!
Oh God, okay. Fear.
Fear!
Oh God.
Fear.
It was in my voice.
It was in my voice? Wait, what?
The fear was in my voice.
Oh, yeah. Arrivederci!